Are you ready for the hot seat?
Welcome to In the Hot Seat with the Tenney Group. I'm Spencer Tenney. It's good to be with you. Are you investing in concrete and steel when it comes to technology in your logistics company, or are you investing in bamboo? Listen, my next guest is going to tell us all about what that means. With me in the hot seat today, we have Ken Evans, CEO and CTO of Konexial. Ken, welcome to the hot seat.
Well, thanks, Spencer. I'm not sure how hot it's going to get, but I'm really excited to talk to you guys.
Well, it's going to get plenty hot, sir. Before we heat things up a little bit, why don't you just take 30 seconds and give us a brief overview of Konexial?
Sure. Konexial is a company that is in its 10th year, was founded in 2016 by 4 or 5 industry practitioners, people that spent their entire careers in logistics, transportation, supply chain. And we kind of decided that we thought we could make better technology than what was coming out and being sold to us. So we made a bet that industry knowledge would eventually be able to build better technology than off-the-shelf product.
Well, and we'll find out soon enough, won't we? So
yes, we will.
So I'm excited to unpack. There's a lot of different things that you guys are tackling right now, but let me just kind of jump in here. Let's talk about a little about your background, because you're not the typical tech kind of CEO, CTO. So tell us a little bit about some of your professional background and how that has influenced where you're at today.
Sure. Well, my background, again, career professional in supply chain, moving over to the transport side. I ran international transportation for Eastman Chemical. Used to be a division of Kodak, and then it became public. Then I ran global logistics for Celanese, which is a global chemical manufacturer. And then I went to work at Koch Industries in Wichita, Kansas. And as I went to Koch, I didn't realize I was an entrepreneur, but Charles has a way of dragging that out of you. And I became an entrepreneur at Koch. Successfully starting 4 companies there, 2 asset-based and 2 services-based, before I decided to see if I could do it as an entrepreneur and do it for myself.
I love that. And as they say, the rest is history, right?
Well, it's being written. Let's put it that way.
Well, maybe it's beginning to unfold. We might say that. So you talked about kind of solving a problem here. So tell us what's fundamentally broken about today's tech stack within logistics.
Yeah. So the problem that we see today is that people are taking 4, 5, 6 systems. For example, an ELD system, a camera system, a TMS, a maintenance system, driver safety, and they're trying to integrate everything together, right? And so the inherent problem there is I'm trying to operate a fleet, sometimes, thousands of trucks, looking at 4, 5, 6 different systems and screens or integrations. And I never have the data I need in the place to actually make the decision in a timely fashion. So when we started Konexial, one of our ingoing premises is this system needs to be able to be the home where live logistics data lives. Because historically, systems are after the fact, they're transactional in nature, and they don't really help if I'm trying to solve a live problem and a live customer service need. So what we did is we approached it differently and said, okay, we need to have a system that is very broad, but also very flexible and can flex with what customer needs are.
And so what have you learned since, it's been 10 years. What have you learned about your theory? What has transpired since you guys have put these in effort into solving this problem?
Yeah. So we've learned a lot, obviously. I mean, you don't make it 10 years without learning a few things, sometimes the hard way.
Right.
But what we learned is that every business is different. There is no one size fits all solution for people. The problem that brings is most people can't afford to build their own technology. They don't have the expertise, the time, or the money to do that. And so what we have done, I guess our approach to business is being industry practitioners kind of gives us a leg up because we understand the fundamentals of how do I run a fleet? How do I service customers and freight transactions? And that gives you an ingoing premise where you can maybe cover 80 to 90% of what someone needs with a platform. And then you can basically talk to them about, well, what's unique about your business? What are the problems you're trying to solve that you can't solve? What is it worth to solve those? And then as opposed to us, a lot of our competitors will either view it as, well, that you need a consultant to do that, or, you need a change order and it's a customization. We fundamentally don't believe in customizations. What we believe in is that if a customer has a legitimate problem, more than likely other people have the same problem. And so we're going to actually prioritize and flex the system or develop the technology they need, and then do it in such a way that it can be used for the greater good of all of our customers. So if we develop something that works for you, more than likely it's going to be needed for somebody else as well.
Ken, I really like what you said, because I think there's so many people right now that are, everything's a problem, right? You had the qualifier, like, what's the problem worth? Or maybe what is solving the problem worth? And if it's not material, what it sounds like to me is that you guys are more interested in getting on to the next thing that actually has some consequence. And then if there's some consequence there, it's very likely that others probably share that same expensive problem. And then you put your attention around that.
Yeah. And I think, one example of what we've done there is we saw an opportunity dealing with people who are hauling agricultural exempt commodities, that there were no systems really to help them track their compliance to these very specialized rules that have to do with, georadiuses and air miles of origin and all sorts of fun stuff. And what we found was a lot of these people were trying to be compliant, but they didn't have the technology needed to do that. So what we did is we said, okay, we're going to develop some geo operational tools to help these people make sure they stay in compliance with what the regulations are. And we found that, there were no other providers were willing to do that and to help them develop those solutions. And what we found is, hey, this solution works great. It helps people, for example, with the Milk Haulers Association, we're both going to here in a week or so. But then as well, it helps people that are hauling cattle and other types of commodities that, and it's an example where, one idea led to a pretty substantial set of people who had the same kind of problem and need the same kind of help. And you build the system again to be flexible so that you're not just locked into the way one company wants to do something.
So because this was like a big revelation when we were together in Orlando at TCA, and a group of us were kind of unpacking this problem, kind of going back to that same idea of, well, what's the cost of not fixing this problem for like some of these milk haulers because since you brought that up, some of the milk haulers, I'll be speaking at their event next week. For the milk hauler, like the milk haulers especially, what's on the table here for those that don't have this problem addressed? Like what type of revenue are they leaving on the table?
Well, the best way I can help people simplify it and understand it. So if you're wanting to use these HOS, compliant rules, you have to know, for example, where the boundary is from my origin. When do I reach 150 air miles from origin? And right now, if you don't have our technology, the driver is being asked to do that with a map and a pencil. Okay. And do you understand the difference between statute miles, which is what Google Maps is based on, or do you understand what an air mile is, which is what the regulation is based on? And so in the past, people have either A, avoided using technology altogether because they couldn't accommodate these rules, or B, they're asking the driver to be responsible and to basically know where the boundary is, pull over, annotate the logs, change statuses. When you add all that up, they were wasting on a conservative basis about 20 minutes every time they crossed that boundary. And some of these people, like our customers in Kansas, they're going from Kansas to adjoining states and going in and out of this boundary multiple times in a given day. So you start adding up 20 minutes of time, and now you've got real costs that are involved in that, because if I'm sitting on the side of the road doing administrative work, I'm not driving the truck, making revenue.
And that's pretty important at times like these, wouldn't you say? So
it is. It is. Wheels aren't turning, no money's coming in.
No, I think it's really interesting what you're creating there. You also brought up integration, and like you don't even believe in integration. I think so much of why people stay with legacy type tech is because integration and change is so difficult. So that in itself is kind of another problem that Konexial's taking head on. Right. So this is, I think, not necessarily to Konexial. Tell us about the problem in general. Like, why are people hindered in their ability to go, seek out the best tech and put it in practice? What prevents them from being able to do that?
Well, there are several things that prevent that. So if you look at the way the industry is structured, it's heavily structured toward companies that are running less than 100 power units. And when you're at that size of company, it's really difficult to have a dedicated IT capability. And so you may have, best of breed in 5 different types of systems, but it takes someone to actually integrate those. And it's not just the initial integration, it's the continual maintenance and follow-up, because supplier A will change something in their API and it may break the connection to supplier B, which also impacts C and D. And so what we look at is, it would be better to have a home for all of this information to flow into one horizontal platform. We call it a geo operating platform. And when you do that, you make the process a lot easier. You're also eliminating cost and complexity. So instead of having to buy from 4 or 5 vendors, now I can get it from one vendor. And maybe I want to keep my legacy, whatever TMS system. Those can be integrated. It's not like we don't do integrations, but we basically do it in such a way that you're taking the maximum you can out of the system as far as simplicity, and only going outside the system when there's a good reason to.
It makes a lot of sense right there. I'm curious, Ken, you kind of seem to be ahead of the pack in a lot of different ways. As you look towards the future, like what do you think? What are some of your predictions around the way that trucking companies and freight brokerages, what will change about the way that they use technology to create leverage in our industry, and just the way that they think about operations?
Right. Well, I see several things changing, and they're more than likely changing all at the same time, which makes it really difficult to get your arms around them. But one is the kind of technology that we're building and the live nature of it. Being able to basically gather very granular data, we're talking inches and seconds precision, across all of your assets, all your people, all your shipments. And then I think the other major thing that's coming up is the ability to use private AI agents on that data. So that's going to be a big driver that's going to differentiate some companies from other companies, from their competitors, where I can actually have AI analyze all this granular data that's my data as a fleet owner, and it will help me to discover patterns and opportunities I didn't see before. So I think as far as technology goes in running fleets, that's going to be a big thing. Having your own agentic agents working inside a geo operating platform. and keeping your data private's a big deal. The other thing, which is a major bet that we have, is that the idea of dynamically matching supply and demand of freight is going to fundamentally change the industry. So today, it's a very manual process to post freight opportunities on load boards, for people to search them, find them, communicate, execute, etc. And we've spent the last decade building technology that takes the friction out of that process. And if you can remove the friction, then you make it easier for the guy that has the truck to find the freight that he needs to keep the wheels turning and keep the operating rate high.
What does that trend or that development, what does that mean for freight brokerages in our space right now?
Well, I think there's a couple of things it means. I think the role of freight brokerage is fundamentally undergoing a change. And I've seen this change coming really since 2014, since before I started the company. And what the change to me is that brokerage becomes much more what I would call a 3PL type service, which is there are a lot of people out there that don't have the bandwidth or the knowledge to manage their freight movements, and they want to outsource that. So business process outsourcing. But what the technology is doing is it's eliminating the arbitrage opportunity between buy and sell activity. So what I see is, yes, freight brokerages will always be there. People are going to want to deal with people. That's just the way of the world. But the brokers are going to be leveraging technology like Konexial to make it easier to serve their customers without all the manual heavy lifting and all the disparate systems. So, our dynamic freight matching product is going to enable both brokers and shippers to buy freight live as it's dynamically available and to see higher levels of service.
That's pretty fascinating right now. Where do you think fleets right now, where do you think that they are losing the most money, that they don't have to?
I think one of the biggest places that fleets are losing money is not being able to track load and unload times. So if you look at the industry statistics, in general, people are allowed to drive up to 11 hours in a 14-hour driving window on a given day. But the best statistics out there say that drivers are only actually driving for about 6.5, maybe 7 hours a day. Well, what are they doing the rest of the time? Well, most of the time, they're being detained on either the load or the unload end, or they're getting stuck in congestion somewhere. So to the degree that you have a system that automatically tracks loading and unloading time, detention, demurrage, and can also reroute you around congested areas so you don't get stuck, for 45 minutes on the Atlanta perimeter somewhere or the Nashville loops. Those are valuable things. And again, it gets back to what is the value of time. And it's a precious commodity that expires. So I want to make the most of that.
No, that's good stuff right there. When we last spoke, you shared a little bit of a story with me that was really fascinating. Had a little bit about how faith has kind of played a role in the development of your company, but also your leadership and some things. Can you give just a snippet of some of the stories about kind of that just-in-time investment that kind of came along early on as you were kind of figuring things out and the potential with Konexial? I just think that it's such a neat story.
Yeah. So when we started the company, or when I started the company back in October 2016, I hadn't raised any money. I didn't know how to raise money. And so we kind of went through a friends and family round of investment. People wanted to know, hey, what are you doing next? And I would tell them, and it's like, I'd like to hear about that. And then we would give them a presentation or whatever. And they'd say, well, I'm interested in putting a little bit of money in that. And it wasn't huge dollars, but enough to help us get off the ground. Fast forward, you raise some money, year and a half later, you're running out of money. So do you go to venture capital or do you go, somewhere else?
Of course you do. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, We didn't, and it might have to do with the fact that we were the age we were, and that we were based in Kansas and Tennessee instead of L.A. and Chicago, etc. So we basically we were fortunate enough to raise 2 rounds of what I'll call friends and family, and that was enough to kind of carry us the first 3 years, and then things got really difficult, right around middle of 2019, and funds are low, and how do you make payroll, and how do you keep the development moving forward and the sales moving forward? And it was pretty interesting time, because we were also starting this major push to basically make some breakthroughs in technology. And we talk about ourselves a lot. We've talked about ourselves being an edge computing company, and most people are like, what do you mean by that? We were talking about that 5 years ago, and everybody didn't know what it was. Now everybody's talking about it. But edge computing is this idea that the devices in the field where stuff is actually happening should be recording, analyzing, and helping make decisions on site. So we do like 95+% of our compute in the cab or with the user's device. And so we were undergoing those major transformations as a business and running out of money at the same time. And literally, when things looked like they were not going well and we were kind of getting very thin, we were at a trade show, the Mid-America Trade Show up in Louisville, Kentucky. And I'm sitting there as the CEO thinking, this isn't looking good. How am I going to make payroll here in a couple of weeks? And it just so happened that a guy came by and wanted to talk to us. And, the simple version is it was a very unexpected source that really liked what we were talking about as far as edge computing, dynamic freight matching, et cetera. And he wanted to know if we were willing to, let him invest. And we talked about it for a few months, and he made the bet. And it was the angel investment that was enough to put us over the top, that allowed us to get to cash flow positive. We've been cash flow positive and profitable for about 5 years now. So our strategy was never to, hey, grow at all costs as fast as you can, buy market share. We've seen companies literally burn through $1 billion doing that. And our process was much more focused on build the very best product you can that helps the most people that you can. And if you can get to cash flow positive and profits quickly enough, then you get unlimited runway because you don't have to raise money. And so God is, he's intervened in our situation multiple times, bringing things from unexpected sources. And, we have a philosophy at our company. We say, we're building a company that will glorify God in what we do. And so we want to do the very best job we can building the technology and trying to help people so that one day they'll ask, what's different about that company? It's not like we go out and we lead with that, but when they ask what's different, we're going to tell them what's different and why we do it.
I think that's pretty cool. So where would the customer feel that? I mean, if having not known, if they hadn't heard what you said, where would they feel that in their experience?
Yeah, there's a couple of places. One is that's right front and center with customer experiences. We made the decision when we started the company that serving the customer was really important. Not just the initial sales process, but when there's something that's not working or that they need help with or training, when they call, we didn't want them to hit an offshore call center. So we actually set up our call center in Knoxville, Tennessee, which is where I'm at right now. And we decided we were going to hire local people who were easy to understand, that drivers could identify with. So they feel that there's a level of care that someone is actually going to either answer the phone or get back to me within a very short period of time, same day most of the time. And then secondly, when we built our mobile application, we built an application that goes well beyond just handling compliance and workflows and ELD. We actually built into our product a content stream. We call it the Life Stream, LIFE. And the whole idea there was we want to give back to our customers in ways that others might not think about. And our whole idea is everything that we do should help a customer either financially, socially, spiritually, physically. And we provide that kind of content into the live stream. So we did partnerships with people who run various content creation on a Christian basis and on an industry basis. So you can go there and get the latest news about what's happening in freight. You can also get, for example, the latest broadcast from Wisdom Hunters, who's been a partner of ours for a long time, where people are learning about, what does it mean to be a Christian? What does it mean to follow Jesus day to day?
Well, that's really fascinating. Couple more questions, Ken. I'm interested. I teased this at the beginning. You kind of talk about these tech investments being kind of steel and brick versus bamboo. What do you mean by that when you talk to that to folks who are in our space?
Yeah. So one of the problems that we see our customers are dealing with, they're dealing with the fact that, hey, I'm locked into this system and it's very difficult for me to change and move. It's very difficult to integrate. So what we do is we give people a platform that has the flexibility to be configured a lot of different ways. It serves a lot of different industries. We're serving one of the nation's largest car haulers and resellers with this platform. We're servicing lots and lots of agriculture fleets that need the geo-intelligence technology we provide. And then you look at, they all have different needs. The idea that some guy that's hauling cattle can operate on the same platform as a guy that's reselling, 1 million cars a year in the United States. Very different requirements, but the reason that they can successfully operate their business is because of the flexibility of the platform. So what we say is buy something that's going to grow with your needs. This platform, you can't outgrow it. You can only grow into it because it's constantly adding capability and evolving. And that's by focusing on what customers actually need to solve.
You might have just answered my next question, but I hear this multiple times a week, Ken, which is like, I know I need to become more sophisticated from an operation side, specifically around my technological capabilities, but things are developing so fast. My hesitancy is that I'm going to invest in something and then it's going to become obsolete in a year or two. So, without pitching Konexial, I'm not really interested in that. Right. I'm more like, what advice do you give to people who are trying to navigate this environment that is, we've never seen technology advance as fast as it is right now? Like, what advice can you give to folks that are kind of in that, I need to do something, but I just don't know what my next move is?
Yeah. A lot of people, they get paralyzed by analysis. So, you're right. Things are changing very fast, but people have been saying that my whole career. I've been in industry for 35 years now. And what I would tell people is that the rate of change is actually increasing. And so, being able to find a platform that's constantly continually improving and making breakthrough improvements, it is important because things are not going to stay the same. And it's important that people find a provider they're comfortable with that's going to move and evolve with them and their needs. And that I'm not really pitching Konexial as much as I am, hey, find a provider that you can have a dialogue about what your needs are. But a lot of companies still have the approach, unfortunately, industry of buy my widget, it's the best. And what people experience is they buy that system or that widget, and then it never changes. And then 5 years later, they're sitting there looking at this and they're saying, nothing's changed in 5 years. I don't think you would find any of our customers who said they have not seen some kind of improvement that benefited them in the last year, let alone 5 years.
No, I think that's a great kind of qualifier. Number one, are you cash flow positive? number,
That would be a good one to ask too, because there's some companies that have burned a lot of money.
Yeah, tell us about a customer that has evolved with you because your products have evolved. I think that would be a good question as well.
Show me what your actual retention rates are.
Yeah, I think this is really fascinating what you're working on, Ken. I got one last question for you, a little bit of a wild card. Now I know you're a Knoxville guy, so here's my question. So you've got box seats to a volunteer fall football game, and you can choose any leaders in the tech world, any industry, to just conversate and enjoy, have a good time. Who are the three that you're taking with you?
Well, without a doubt, Elon Musk is the number one person. I don't think he's into sports, though, so he might decline that. But I would love to spend some time just talking to him, because when I look at it, it's not only the technology contributions he's made, but the investments he's made to make sure we can still have freedom of speech are substantial, and I value that. So I would definitely say Elon would have to be my number one choice. I'm sure there's some other interesting guys. There's obviously some industry guys that I think pretty highly of, but he would definitely be the first choice. Well,
you let us know about the other two. Well, we'll put those in the comments of this interview. But
Ken, who would people want to see me invite?
We'll do a poll. That's what we'll do. Hey, Ken, listen, I'm so excited about what you got going on with Konexial. It's such an interesting time to be in this space. I really appreciate you sharing your wisdom with our audience. That's going to do it for us in the hot seat. We will see you next time.
All right. Thanks so much.